Disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. Do not attempt this at home. Vitiated how-to will not be responsible because you decided to be a cheap ass and not hire a professional.
On with the show.
Now we're back again. Know the difference between prostitution and pornography. There is a thin line between the two when it comes to the law. It's clear cut, but then it's gray also. And you watched the disclaimer before this video? Yeah. That still stands. We all know what prostitution is. A prostitute soliciting for sex. Look up your definition of it. Make sure you understand the definition of it, because it's going to be very important later on if you have more than one person on your site, or if you're the one videoing the people. Make sure you understand what the law is in your state, your city, and your county, because it varies from all three. And it's very important to understand that. There has been done by the Supreme Court, you can look it up, People versus Freeman, 46 Cal. 3D 419 1988, where the Supreme Court defined what prostitution was and what pornography is. So you can actually pay two people to perform a sex act. Now, if you're the one paying the person to perform the sex act on you, there's where the gray area is and the thin line between the prostitute and the model. You will need to contact a lawyer, so don't be a cheap ass, and get an understanding of that law. I have a whole section in my bookmarks of porn site rules that I can make an entire playlist of just that, because I've been researching this probably 20 years now, trying to find a legal way to get around it and not get in trouble. And every year the law changes a little different and a little different. So if you're not up on the rules and the regulations, you're asking to get in trouble. But that is very important you understand what the difference is. And an example, Harold Freeman paid a performer in a non-obscene erotic film. Now, non-obscene. In different states and cities in the United States, there's a different definition of obscene. And according to the People versus Freeman, there were some sexual acts involved, some sexual intercourse involved in this video. Now, in some states and cities in this country, that is considered lewd and lascivious and obscene. That is still on the books today. It's an old law. They just never taken it off. So technically they can still try you for it. So you need to understand, back to what I said, and I will say it throughout the damn video, what the state, city, and county regulations are. I understand what the federal is, but it can be superseded by the city, the state, and the county if it is more strict. So you've got to understand all this when you're doing this, because it ain't just about putting something up on Pornhub or something up on OnlyFans, now you're into a big situation to where you're playing with the big boys. You're looking at anywhere from a year to 5 years in prison. Not federal penitentiary, we're talking prison. So now you're in a whole nother ball game of rules and regulations that you got to understand. And you've not even put your first bit of content on your OnlyFans yet. And I'm already talking to you about going to jail. So you've got to understand that. And you've got to look all this up. I'm not going to tell you because I'm not a lawyer. I know what I need to know to do what I need to do. But my understanding of the law and my perception is different from yours. And it would be different from your legislation. And it'd be different from your police and your city councils. Because I'm going to find a loophole in everything and I'm going to exploit the hell out of it. Because that's what I'm good at. I didn't get the name for nothing. So you got to understand. This kind of borderlines the First Amendment issue a little bit. But it kind of walks around it. It kind of walks around it. But I'll give you another little a little tidbit of information you can find. It's Barrow versus Municipal Court Supreme. It's 1 CAL.3D 821, 827. That's something else you can look up that is completely legit and legal. But it gives you an idea of what you're up against. And like I said, I've been I've been researching this quite some time. And like I was talking about, just because the California Supreme Court said that was okay for that state, each state has its own Supreme Court. So you got to understand that what's good for one state may not be good for the other state, especially if you're in the Bible Belt. Things are a lot different there. So then you just got to understand that you may be the example someone makes. And you may be the presidents of that state, just like the California versus Freeman. That might be you one day, and it might not ever. But you got to understand what you're up against. That's why you have to read and understand the legislation about the pornography, about the obscenity, and about the prostitution. Because they are all fine lines that can get you a lot of time for each piece of content that you have. So if you got 500 videos and someone wants to make an example of you, that's 500 counts of, say, obscenity, which may take 2 years. You may get a year for each count. That's 500 years you're looking at for an obscenity charge. Because you was too lazy to go look at the law in your city, state, or county to verify what you're doing is legal. Will you be prosecuted? Maybe, maybe not. Because we're in a day and age to where all they want is your tax money and they really don't care. But there's always some prosecutor that's going to be an asshole that wants to make his name known or her name known and wants to make an easy example to the rest of the world just because they got a God complex. And you don't want to be that person. So you really need to understand what's going on. So with that being said, I'll do this in closing. Protect yourself, cover your ass, and watch what you do. Because it could be you.